Hello everybody, Prowl here, and the new Garden Awakens update is out that has added a whole bunch of stuff, and today we are going to be making a resin farm. I'm going to actually show you how to make what I think is the best resin farm because it is very efficient, it is not going to lag your world a lot, and you can very easily scale it up or down to whatever size that you want, so you can get infinite amounts of resin or just a little trickle of resin over time. It's totally up to you. So first thing to know, this is the creaking heart block right here. You're going to have to go to a pale garden biome to get at least one of those, and you will need silk touch to get it. You're also going to need pale oak logs. You're going to want 4 per 1 creaking heart. I recommend get yourself 4 pale oak saplings, bring them back. You can grow them at home and get as much of the pale wood as you want to. You can then take the resin that you get from that to craft yourself more creaking hearts. Now, whenever you have the creaking heart in this configuration, and it could be the log, it could be the strip log, any variation of the log will work, this will spawn creaking at nighttime. That's going to be important because when we spawn this guy right here at nighttime, whenever you hit him, you're going to get this. You're going to get resin clumps. Resin clumps will appear on your pale oak logs that are around the creaking heart. Once you get 9 resin clumps together, you can make yourself this, a block of resin, and then the recipe to craft a creaking heart is 1 log, 1 block of resin, and another log. That recipe right there in your crafting table will get you a creaking heart. Now, you can also take this resin and you can smelt it into resin bricks, and it only takes 4 resin bricks to make a resin brick block. And resin bricks will make you the new resin blocks. You have walls, stairs, blocks, slabs, and then the chiseled resin bricks, which has the creaking's face on it. You can also take these resin bricks and use them as a new color option for armor trim. It gives you this like bright orangey type color. Also, a little hidden thing that I don't think barely anybody's paid much attention to is when you smelt resin, it gives you 0.7 XP per resin clump that you smelt into a resin brick. That's incredibly high. So if you're looking for a really good, easy XP farm, this is potentially it, because it is easily the fastest, highest amount of XP possible that is automatically farmable in Minecraft. So you could easily set yourself up a big array of furnaces and make yourself an XP storage bank, which basically just means you run a whole bunch of resin clumps through a whole bunch of furnaces, and anytime you need some XP, you just come up, you break the furnace, and you instantly get like 30, 50 levels, whatever it is, however much resin you run through it. It's a very nice thing to have, and I think something that a lot of people are going to find a lot of use in. The next thing to know when we're building this is the spawnable area for the creaking. He'll spawn a certain amount away from the creaking heart when it turns nighttime. That is 16 in each direction to the side, and then it is 7 blocks up and 10 blocks down. That is based off of the block that he will stand on. So if you had 7 blocks up, the creaking will spawn on this block right here. If you had 8 blocks up, he will not spawn on that 8th block. Same for the 10th block down. He will spawn standing on this 10th block down. He will not spawn lower than that. Now, the really cool thing that I figured out was he'll still do the little particle effect thingy that I'll show you a little bit later, where he will generate the resin clumps even if he's outside of this zone. So we only need to keep the creaking inside of this area to spawn him. But if he goes outside of the area after he spawned, that won't matter, and that will factor into how we design things, because I just found that out when I was setting this up. I tested it, and it's going to change my design a little bit, and you guys are going to love it. It's going to be super awesome. The last thing that I want you to know, though, is that when you hit the creaking and he generates resin clumps, how those resin clumps actually generate. So here, I'm just going to throw these here really quick as an example. The resin clumps always 100% of the time will start on one of these 4 blocks, and it's a random chance per block that's available, the best that I can tell. Essentially, if you just have these 2 blocks available, it's going to generate less often because it might try to generate here or here, and then that generation is going to fail because those blocks aren't there. So you want to have all of this available. It can generate on the front side, it can generate on the back side, and it can even generate on the sides here as well. Now, here's another thing. The resin does not always generate singular. So you can sometimes have one hit of the creaking generate multiple resin, even like this. or like this. So we want to have as many spaces available for the resin to generate. That way, each time we hit the creaking, we want to be able to get as much of it as possible. You see, I hit him once, these little particles go over. We had one generate that time. I'm gonna hit him again. We had another one right here generate, and on this side generate. So sometimes you have multiple of it generate. So you want to have as many spaces as possible, but you don't need to really go far out to do it. So there's going to be a balance here that we're going to need to strike. Now you can not only get this resin off of here by just punching it with your hand, but you can also use a piston to move it, which is what we're going to be doing. Using a fortune tool and it doesn't give you any more. You always get one 100% of the time. You don't get more than one from it. Now with all of that out of the way, let's actually start making the farm. Before we start, I thought I would show you the farm really quick so you know where we're starting and a way to kind of plan your space. This platform right here is where the creaking are going to spawn in on. You could put this at like ground level and hide all this underground, but keep in mind you will have to spawn proof any blocks within this zone up here, because otherwise the creaking will spawn outside of its platform. And you could spawn proof it not by lighting like you would normal mobs, but by using like buttons or glass or carpet, something like that, to make it so the creaking can't spawn on those spots. You're gonna see me use glass a lot here. It just makes it a lot easier. Creaking, again, will spawn on almost everything. So if you use solid blocks through here, they're going to spawn on those blocks. They'll even spawn on the top of these pistons, but they don't spawn on glass, or like I said, if you block the spawn spots. So use glass if you want. Just, again, makes it so you have to do less spawn proofing. If you don't want to use glass, make sure that you block every potential spawn spot that they can spawn in. And maybe your first several times using it, keep an eye on it and see where creaking are spawning outside of the farm, because it's going to be annoying because they're going to attack you and you can't kill them. So yeah, I think for our building purposes, we're going to start at the bottom. I feel like that's probably going to be the easiest. And just for your reference, this like part right here, which is kind of like the bottom of the farm itself, not counting the storage, this is 9 blocks below the floor where the creaking are going to spawn, just in case that's going to help you do any kind of planning. And the farm is 16 blocks wide, 17 blocks in depth, but that is counting this daylight sensor and this little block right here that connects to it. So you could maybe minus those two off if you don't want to have that. I'll explain what those are, what those do, and why you may or may not want them in a little bit. But otherwise, I think we're good to go ahead and get started building with the bottom area. Before we continue, a message from today's sponsor, whose computer chairs I highly recommend, eWin. So I first partnered with eWin in mid 2023, where I built and used one of their Champion Series gaming chairs. And I've now been using the same chair, which by my live streams is known as Chairzard, for over 15 months now. And I've been so incredibly happy with it that I decided to reach out to them again. On top of being a great chair to sit in, it's also actually incredibly easy to build. They come mostly pre-assembled, and you'll also notice that while you're building your chair, the chair is pretty heavy. You can tell it's made out of sturdy, high quality materials. And with now thousands of hours in the chair that I'm sitting in currently, I can comfortably say that the quality of materials shows in its durability and lack of any visible wear and tear. And you can adjust practically everything with these chairs. The Champion Series allows you to do the normal up and down adjustment. You can tilt the seat backwards and forwards. You can recline the seat all the way back, and the arms will go up and down, in and out, side to side, forward and backwards. They even do this like twisting in and out. There's like a full range of options to get it to be comfortable for you and customize the way that fits your seating position and your preference the best. To start shopping for your eWin gaming chair, click on my link in the description below and browse through the Champion Series chairs to pick the style and color that you like the most, or use the menus at the top of the page to browse through their other products that they have available. Once you find your new chair and add it to your cart, use discount code PROWL8413 that will get you 20% off of your purchase and enjoy your new comfortable gaming chair. All right, so to get started, we're going to count up 8 blocks, and this is where we're going to make our platform that is going to be flushing all of the drops into our crafter. And this platform needs to be 12 blocks one way and 11 blocks the other. Now, on the 12 block side, you're just going to want to carve out either one of these two center set of blocks here. We'll knock out these, and all we're doing is we're making a little trench for our water to fall down into. And then as we go around and do our wall around here to trap the water, I do want to go through and place our fence gates here. This will stop the water from flowing into the middle itself, so your drops can flow to the hoppers that are going to be down here below. And next, go ahead and put a border around the outer portion of the farm here. Next, you want to come down underneath, and under this glass block that is in the center, go ahead and click a crafter under there. Take some hoppers and face one hopper straight down into the crafter by holding down the crouch button. Put one on each side as well, and then hoppers pointing down into those. We now have 3 like inputs coming into this guy. You could go ahead and put your chest down now too. You do that by placing a temporary block, put a chest there, and then however many chests you feel like you need, you can go ahead and do. Keep in mind, you have other options, like I mentioned earlier, of instead of crafting everything down into the blocks, you could always let it flow directly into a smelter system and smelt everything into resin bricks. But we're going to keep it simple here today, and we're going to use the crafter to compress everything down to resin blocks, because it takes 9 resin clumps to make 1 resin block, which means we need 9 times less storage for all of the stuff that we're going to have. And the crafter is super easy. You don't need to do much with it. Go ahead and place down any solid block right there. Now against that, go ahead and click a temporary block there. I'm just going to use an observer. Place an observer down right there. That one stays. Take out that temporary block and have an observer look at that observer, and that's it. You've made yourself a clock that is always going to be ticking the crafter, and it will only craft the resin clumps into resin blocks. You do not have to worry about it crafting anything else. You will want to make sure that nothing else falls in the system, and at the very end of doing everything here today, the first thing you want to do is come down here and check the crafter to make sure that nothing fell down in here, because if it did, then your crafter's not going to craft. Next thing you're going to want to do is bring this wall up by 2 blocks all the way around. Next, you're going to want to put pistons in these spots spaced out every other block. So you're going to want to put a piston here, a piston here. You can use a temporary block right here and put a piston there as well, and take that temporary block out. You do that in every other spot. Do that on both sides. This is where you should be, where you have those pistons spaced out by every other block. Now we need to add in the center pistons. The easiest way to do this is going to be to come over the edge here and then hover over top of your fence gates and place down a couple blocks there just to kind of get your ground level set. And then bring these temporary blocks all the way across. And then you're going to want to do the same thing on the side that has 6 blocks of water flow versus 5 blocks of water flow, which means we're going to come on this side. And all we need to do is, in line with the pistons here, we need to face one here, 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 and here. And yes, they do all have to be sticky pistons, because it's going to fully optimize or make the farm a lot faster for how much resin we can get per time that we hit the creaking. Next thing you can do is come in underneath the back piston here and knock out the piece of glass that you have right there. Fill each of those gaps with redstone dust, and then put a piece of glass in front of the dust like I'm doing here. And then you're going to put redstone dust on top of the piston and behind the piston. And then finally, go ahead and put a piece of glass between each one of these, and then connect the redstone dust up here. Do this again on both sides. And then finally, we're going to actually do the same thing right here. And then we'll run dust across here like this, and then place an additional one on top of each piston. You don't have to have it connecting the pistons on that side. Doing it just like this is going to be fine. Lastly, for spawn proofing purposes, go ahead and put a button or carpet or something like that on top of these pistons that have nothing on top of them. That way creaking can't spawn. You don't need to do it down there. You just need to do it on these top ones. Next thing you're going to want to do is actually set up all of your pale hearts and pale logs. Don't do this at night, because the creaking will spawn on you if you do. But just come right down here. You can just jump inside the farm. It's fine. That's why we haven't put the water in yet. Get in line with your pistons, like kind of in the middle of them. We have 1, 2 blocks here, 1, 2 blocks here. So we're right in the middle. Then you're going to want to put down 2 temporary blocks right here. Then you're going to want to put down your pale oak log. Then you want to put down your creaking heart, and then your pale oak log. And then you'll end up with your pale oak log directly in the center. And you can add another one on this side and another one on this side. And you're going to want to do that for all of the spaces here and here. Okay, so this is the stage that you should be at now with all of our pale oak logs in place. The next thing, you just need to run water all the way across this side, all the way across this side. And you want to put 1 water source right down here and 1 water source right down here. Next thing we need to do is cover this over. That way all of our resin clumps don't go flying out somewhere and get stuck. So what you're going to do is you're going to go 2 rows here like this, One row here and one row here. You see, it kind of looks like a little like roof peak or something like that. Do the same thing on both sides, just like this. Now to close everything in, all we need to do is just close in the spots that anything could possibly get out. So we're going to put glass blocks between all these pistons here, bring this straight down here like this, bring this one straight down here, same here and here. And you want to bring those all the way to the end here and just build it up like we already did. And then that's what you should end up with. Now there's nowhere for our resin clumps to get stuck. They will fall down no matter where they generate. We're going to do that same thing over here. Now is a good time to point out, while I'm showing you how to do what's going to end up giving us 10 creakings, because we have 10 creaking hearts, you can do this thing in almost any size that you want. We could have only had 2, we could have 10, 20, we could have almost any number of them that we want to have, as long as our redstone signal can keep running down this way like we already did. Next thing we're going to make is the chamber for our creaking to spawn into, and it's just going to go right up along here. You can put it anywhere front to back, because with the size we're using here, it doesn't really matter. For every 10, we're going to do 13 slots for the creaking to end up going into. This platform is going to be 5 blocks deep, and the reason why we're doing this is because it gives us more places for the creaking to spawn into. You technically only need 1 block for the creaking to spawn onto to be able to hit it and generate the resin, but with the creaking only spawning at nighttime, we want to spawn it really quickly, because he's going to spawn in and out every 10 minutes, because that's how long a night lasts. So when he does spawn in, we want to take care of him very quickly. And this is a problem I've seen with a lot of the other farms. We're building a little wall around here, so just copy what I'm doing as I talk. I've seen a lot of other farms where people will let the creaking spawn in on a single block, and it doesn't work like that, because it takes the creaking too long to spawn, meaning you're wasting minutes of your only 10-minute window. Every 20 minutes that a night cycle comes back around again, just waiting for spawns to happen. Now, I guess you would still call it a trident killer here, but in this case, it's not killing, it's just damaging the creaking. And you should have 13 of these pistons here. And we're going to put a roof over top of this thing. Before I close this off, I'm going to place water down straight across here. That way, when the creaking spawn, they're going to just flow this direction. They're going to go up against this wall right here, and then we're going to have tridents right there that hit the creaking, causing them to generate resin. Again, I'm using all glass blocks because I only want creaking to spawn in there. Here's probably the most expensive part of this farm. You're going to need at least 1 trident for every single one of these pistons. And then I'm just going to enclose over top of these tridents too. They shouldn't go anywhere, but I like to do that just to be a little extra safe. And then we are going to need to get redstone to these. So I'm going to place down all of this and put some redstone dust here. And we're going to be tying in a clock to this in a second. And the clock is the next and I think the last portion of this. And honestly, the most important part of this. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to build the timing circuit for this. And this timing circuit is incredibly important, and it's one I've seen nobody else use. This is going to reduce lag by orders of magnitude, by a whole lot, and only make it run when it needs to. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take an observer, and we want that observer to face up, not at this spot, but this spot right here. And we can just put a solid block on top of that. We're going to go down below the observer, 2 blocks below, in fact, and we're going to place a temporary block right here and face a hopper into that. Get rid of the temporary block and face the hopper into this. We're just going to make a very simple etho hopper clock here. We're going to want to go diagonally below each hopper and then diagonally above each one of those blocks. These are permanent blocks that are going to stay. We're going to put a comparator facing out of each hopper there. We're going to put a piece of redstone dust on top of each of those blocks. We're going to take a piston, face it this way, and then put a redstone block right here in the middle. And that's our etho hopper clock all done. Now, to be able to see the signal from this clock, what you're going to want to do is put a solid block here. You could use a glass block right here. Put your daylight detector here, put your dust there. Now this daylight detector will send out a redstone signal whenever it's on, and then whenever it turns nighttime, that redstone signal goes off. This is actually going to make it so this farm doesn't run at all during the day, because there's no creaking here. Why do we want the farm to run during the day? It makes no sense. It's a waste of time. Next thing we want to do is just get our signal run to all of these. So what we're going to do is we're going to place down some glass here and here. We're going to run a repeater out of each side of this. We have all of them on 4 ticks. We're going to place down our glass this way and just connect over to right here. Same thing for this side. And then right before we hit our redstone here, we're going to put a solid block and a torch, a solid block and a torch, and then run our redstone dust back to our repeaters. The reason why I'm using the extra repeaters and the extra torches rather than doing it all off one spot is because now I have a full redstone signal right here. So if you wanted to like make this farm bigger, like you could technically go about twice as long as we have already gone right here. Next thing I want to do is take the signal that like this guy's getting. This is actually getting a redstone signal up here too. We do not need to go through a repeater yet. We're going to just make a little staircase up with glass blocks up to this redstone here. We do not need a torch. We only need a repeater, and we're going to leave that repeater on 1 tick. And then we're just going to run a redstone line straight down. Doing it this way will allow you to make this much larger in each direction if you want to make the farm bigger. Last but not least, we need to put our number of items we need in the hopper here. I have carefully timed this out. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put 13 items in the hopper here. 13 items is the perfect amount of time for what I'm about to show you. Although if you have a little bit of lag on your device or in your world, you may want to put a 14th item in there. But if you generally aren't very laggy, 13 will be good. I'm going to turn this off so you can see what's happening. You're going to see the tridents move first, and then all of the pistons move second. The farm is actually done now. So if I do time set midnight, every roughly 5 seconds, the creaking is able to send a signal back to the creaking heart to make more resin. The creaking cannot do it any more often than that. So if you were to just run this constantly, it doesn't do anything. All you're doing is you're just making a lot of extra lag for absolutely no reason whatsoever. So rather than doing that, we are only hitting the creaking exactly when it's able to create more resin when we do our timer this way. You will see, and you may be concerned with, oh, but Prowl, there's a lot of resin getting stuck up here. Don't worry, it all works its way down after 1 or 2 cycles. I've tested this a lot. I've watched it a lot. It works absolutely perfectly fine. One other thing I want to show you is if I set the time today and all of our creakings are gone, right? And then it turns night again. This is why we do it this way, because you see the creaking spawning in. They spawn in pretty quick because we gave them a lot of spawning spaces to spawn in quick on. If we didn't do that and we only had just that 1 row right here, the creaking's not going to be able to easily spawn in. Actually, I think I can even show you that. Okay, I have all those blocks covered. Let me turn it to night. Like, look how long it's taking to spawn more in. We still only have 3 right now. So you're wasting a lot of time of getting resin when nighttime only lasts 10 minutes. So instead of doing it that way, we did it this way so we can just get creaking to pop in almost instantly. And there we go. You can see the whole farm working out. All the creaking are getting hit when they need to get hit. I'm getting tons of blocks of resin. Remember, we're compressing it because it takes 9 resin clumps to make 1 resin block. And then whenever it turns daytime, when the creaking are gone, the farm turns itself off, and then that will keep it turned off during the daytime. The clock itself now won't even run. So as you can see, it's just going to sit here and sit still. And then when we turn it back to nighttime, it'll start running again. One last thing I want to show you here, although the farm is now done, just for fun, and just to show you how you can scale this thing up, I'm going to make this thing a lot bigger. Here's your proof of concept of a much larger version. I'm not going to show everything with this. As you can see, it's actually very laggy. This is 44 creaking. This would make somewhere around 75,000 resin per hour. It's too many particles. It's too many pistons. So I would never do something like this. You just get so much with the 10 creaking version that I showed earlier, but I wanted to show how you could easily take a design like this, scale it up, scale it down. You could do a lot with the original design, and we've gone over everything that you may want to use the resin for. We've gone over how to make the resin farm, and hopefully you got something out of this and you can now go build your own. I appreciate you guys watching today. If you haven't already, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.